Um, hey everybody, this is Tanya Oak Smith with Higher Ed Solo. I am here today with Joel Goodman of Bravery Transmedia. He was in Chicago and recently moved down to Austin, Texas to start his own venture. And we're going to talk to him a little bit today about how we work with freelancers because I find that there are issues with working with freelancers, just my communication patterns and everything. So I thought it would be interesting and good for us to learn how a freelancer wants us to work with them. So Joel, say hey.
Hey guys.
Now you recently relocated. Like, how long have you been down in Austin?
We're coming up on 4 months in just like the next couple weeks here. So
Okay. And you left higher ed to start your own design firm, right? Uh,
did
why did you decide to do that?
I was coming up on 6 years in higher ed and at my second institution, and uh, I kind of felt that I'd gotten to the point where I'd done a lot of the things that I had set out to do at the beginning when I took this last job at Trinity International University. I had just finished my master's, and my wife and I had always kind of thought, once my master's was finished, we would kind of reassess where we were at and see what we wanted to do. And for me personally, I loved working in and with higher ed, but I felt specifically that my talents could be used to help a wider range of people than just the one institution I was at. And so I was hoping that, and actually hoping, and also based on a lot of feedback that I'd already gotten from people I know at other schools, that I would be able to make something out of the kind of the periphery work I was already doing, and move from doing contract as a side job to kind of making that my main focus, and seeing what I could do. And I mean, so far it's worked out really, really well. I've working with quite a few people, working with Eastern Wyoming College and Ron Bronson. I'm still doing some contract work with Trinity International University, and I've done some stuff for Southern New Hampshire University. And I just keep trying to keep those, I guess, channels and lines of communication open with other institutions that might need the help of someone that knows higher ed but isn't entrenched in the politics, or entrenched in their current school's culture. And I think that's one of the big things when you are at a specific institution. The culture informs everything that you're thinking about, and so it's sometimes nice to have someone that can step outside, take a look at what's going on, and say, okay, well, why aren't you doing this? Or, hey, this would be something really cool that you could do to kind of beef up what you want to do. And so I'm hoping to use the skills and the kind of the knowledge that I've gained in 6 years of higher ed, as well as just doing design and web development for a lot of different people, even outside of higher ed, to make other people look better.
Tell me, I guess your vision is not to work exclusively with higher ed, but just because of your connections, that's what you've started out doing a lot of.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, part of that, I think, especially my master's is in media studies, and I focus particularly on new media and how messages and culture is created just through media. And what I learned through working at two different institutions is that a lot of the stuff that I did for normal websites, I mean, websites I was building for bands, or websites and marketing things that we were doing for the transportation and fashion industries, or just other people, really applies to what we do as web marketers in particular, but also as designers in higher education. And so I personally, I try to keep a foot in both worlds, because I think everything that I'm learning from now working with a lot of startups and now working with a lot of businesses applies even more intensely to what higher ed is doing on the web specifically. And I think a lot of that comes down to, for the longest time, higher ed was seen as being years behind what was going on in kind of mainstream web design and mainstream web marketing. And when I was going to conferences like High Ed Web, and talking with people, it always seemed like we were trying to catch up and figure out, how do we do what all these big companies are doing already. And I think that having both sides going, where I'm working with people that are in main, like, normal commercial industries, helps me to further clarify or direct or focus what I can offer, what I can recommend to institutions that just don't operate in that world. not-for-profit world is just way different from the commercial world, but there are a lot of things,
Yeah.
I mean, culturally in particular, but there are a lot of things as far as practice goes that helps a ton with what we do as people marketing for colleges and universities. And we're all trying to reach the same people, and that's really what it is. You know, the students and prospective students that we are trying to reach through our web communication are the same people that Facebook's trying to reach, or the same people that any company. I mean, at the time, who Flickr was trying to reach to get into their communities, and who Google was trying to get into. I mean, it's the same people, so why not use the same practices and translate them as best we can?
Okay, now let's kind of switch gears and talk about the process of working with clients. Um, I don't know right now how many small teams versus large teams that you work with, but does there appear to you to be a difference in working with a large group of people as opposed to a small group of people, or even one person?
I think there can be, and again, I think it comes down to the culture of the institution, particularly that I'm working with in higher ed specifically. When working with, say, a larger group like Southern New Hampshire University, we're working on a specific project for a specific team that's there, but it might be 3 or 4 or 5 people that I'm talking with, and that's handled differently from, saying doing a 1 or 2 person thing with marketing at Trinity International University, or working directly with Ron Bronson at Eastern Wyoming College. Particularly like Southern New Hampshire, because they're so focused on numbers and efficient, they have a ton of work to do. They keep their meetings as short and succinct as possible. I mean, they're right on task the entire time, which for me is actually kind of refreshing. I mean, because sometimes I like to talk, but it's nice to be able to go in and hear exactly what they want to say. Boom, boom, boom. Get my questions answered, and then be out in a half hour or 20 minutes. When we had a 30-minute allotment for the meeting. Not to say that having a general discussion is bad, and I always like to start my processes that way, especially if I don't know the institution or the cultural background, like who they're trying to reach, what messages they're trying to do. But it seems to me that the larger ones are more, the larger groups that I work with are a little bit more on task, or make an effort to be a little bit more on task during their meetings than the smaller ones do.
That's interesting. I'd never thought about it that way, but that's really interesting. Now, let's talk about how we go into that process, because you just mentioned that it appears that larger groups are more prepared to go into a meeting. They know more what they want. They have it defined better. So how can we, as one people, solo practitioners, walk into a meeting? Is there a checklist that you like to go through when you first approach a job, or?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I'm one of I try to be one of those good contractors that communicates very clearly up front. I mean, what I like going in, I'll usually do a list of, okay, I want just a general kind of feel for what the project is before the meeting. This is what we're doing, and I'll usually ask questions off of that and say, okay, are you, show me a list of sites that you think personally this is, I do this a little bit differently because I focus more on emotion than I think some people do. But I ask for sites that you feel give, even if the design isn't exactly what you want, give you the same feeling when you're looking at the website as you want to evoke from the people that are visiting, whatever it is that we're building. Different things that I like to see, different things that each institution has done already that might be either in the same campaign or at least in the same vein of what we're going to be doing going forward. Any numbers or clear goals that you have defined ahead of time, like, we want to do this, we want to do this, we want to do this, we want it to be on WordPress, we want it to, our goal is to, attract new students to apply. We want to have really good SEO, really solid SEO management on it. Whatever the requirements are, knowing exactly what you require from a very utilitarian standpoint is extremely helpful, because that lets me get some of all the initial questions out of the way and be able to focus on whatever it is that you hired me specifically to do. So if it's for graphic design and kind of art direction, then I'm not sitting there worried about, or thinking about the strategic and tactical standpoints of, okay, we need to put this technology stack into place, and these people do this, we need to find hosting to do this. So having kind of all the technical things out of the way is extremely helpful. I think especially having if there is any design that's already been done, or design that's going to lend into or lead into what we're doing, having that available for me to look at and maybe even talk about if we're doing an in-person or like a video chat, being able to look at, talk about that kind of thing. But I think really for me, at least for first meetings, like the prep work, knowing exactly what you need from kind of a requirement standpoint. And then I think the second part of that is just having the right people in the room. If there are people that need to speak into it, then invite them along and we'll talk to them. What I end up doing is I'll start the first meeting with whoever my direct contact is, and I ask specifically, if you can map out the discussion ahead of time and say, okay, these are the questions that we want to ask before we actually go into a meeting with if we're doing a kickoff meeting with a group of people, these are the questions we actually want to ask. And if you have specific ones, let's save those and we can email them. I mean, that's extremely helpful. But then we at least get a general sense of what the entire project is going to look like up front, and we can get into the nitty gritty stuff, after the fact.
Mm-hmm. Now, how many times, because I hear this from my stakeholders a lot when I work with freelancers, how many times do you hear, oh my gosh, they're going to charge what to do this? Why can't somebody internally do this? Or why does this cost this? I find that when you have somebody who's internal, who's working in a client services model, and this issue continues to pop up in my life, the client services model versus, a chargeback model, people do not appreciate what it really costs. So how do you respond to that? Do you ever have that?
When I was at an institution, definitely. I mean, that came up, and I was a solo web worker. I had a marketing team kind of behind me, but anything that had to do with the web was me. And so I definitely was put in the position where no, we wouldn't contract stuff out. It was up to me to get it done. And I mean, at one point that meant working 70-hour weeks for about 2 months so that I could get a website out, and was not good on my sanity for one, but also, my sleep didn't keep up. I think it can be a hard sell to go with a contractor, because the prices are going to be higher. What's worked for me in the past as a tactic for kind of getting that case out there is that if you're doing it right, you're going to have a full-time person doing this, and that means you're going to be paying for an entire year's worth of them working on stuff, and it's going to take them a couple of months. If you hire a contractor, you're paying a premium, but you're most likely going to get the project done quicker than you would internally. I mean, I don't know any way that you wouldn't get the job done quicker than you could if you had one person internally working on it. And you're in general going to get a better product because it's someone who, I think this is part of this is opinion, but I think you're going to get a better product because you have someone who's thinking not just in terms of what you've always done in your own programs. I always operated as I tried to be that kind of internal consultant and give that spin on, well, we've always done it this way, but we should try something else. Like, this could be really cool, especially at Trinity. I mean, that's what I tried to do when I was working there. And sometimes it works, but I think there's also, once you've made the sale, there's also this kind of effect, like when you hire consultants and they're like, oh, we're paying a whole bunch of money for consultants, we better listen to whatever they say. It's the same thing with a contractor. A contractor or a freelancer, in a way, is a consultant. They're just consulting on a very specific thing, a web design or some kind of visual aesthetic for something that you're doing, or a technology stack that you want to use. So hopefully that's a good sales pitch as well. Yeah, you're going to pay a premium, but in the end, you're going to get something quicker. You don't have to pay for it once. You don't have to keep putting into it. you generally get a guarantee with that person. And if you're not getting a guarantee with that person, you're hiring the wrong person. Yeah, I think there's plus and minuses to both sides, but I think there's, especially with small teams or solo people, contracting is a great way to double your efforts without having to hire an entirely new person, and put, $30 to $60,000 into a salary.
Mhm. You know, what do you wish clients did more of?
I think every, especially, 'cause from a design standpoint, I think every designer is going to be a little bit different. I personally like to know what people like, what they want, because generally I found that I can I can at least issue something that is better than they expected, I think, is what it is. And they say this is the type of design I like, and we like these websites and how they do this. I can take that and turn it into something that fulfills the needs. Like I can get down to what needs they're actually expressing, or what desires they're actually expressing, beyond the the lacquer and paint of this is a pretty color and this button has rounded edges or whatever. I can get past that to, okay, they want this to be extremely effective at grabbing someone's attention, and they want this navigation to be apparent all the time, and they want some really good call outs that invite people to take action and actually do something. And when I can do that, I can present them with something that I think, from my experience, has in almost every case has been better than what they were expecting, and they really like that. So knowing what you like is definitely helpful, or having examples of what you like, is even more helpful than that. And I think sometimes, I've encountered people that are like, well, they're the designer, they should just be able to design it. Sometimes that's true, but you're not. I would say that more often than not, you're not going to like what we design just out of the box, because we're not really going off of anything that you have. Or it's not going to fit into your brand standards, or it's not going to fit into the overarching campaign or the visual design that you're trying to do already. So give us a little bit of direction, because we like to we'll play with it and we'll make it better.
Well, that's it. Thanks so
Sweet.
much, Joel. And thanks to all of y'all for talking to us today. If you have any questions or want to get with Joel, how do we get with you?
Yeah, so you can go to braverytransmedia.com, and there's a form there. You can also email me at joel@bravery.me, but the Bravery is BRVRY, so that's might be a little bit confusing. So you can use the form at braverytransmedia.com.
All right, cool. Thanks so much, Joel. Appreciate it.
Tanya.